Subscribe if you hate Karens and comment where you're watching this video from. The morning sun, a hazy orange orb, was just peeking over the horizon as I pulled my work van. A Ford Econoline meticulously maintained and bearing the bold Morris Electrical Solutions logo onto the construction site. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of freshly turned earth and the faint, metallic tang of welding. This was familiar territory, the kind I thrived in. The medical office complex project was a big one, a multi-million-dollar investment promising state-of-the-art healthcare to the community. We were brought in early, tasked with laying the foundation for the entire electrical grid, a responsibility I took seriously. My crew, a tight-knit team of skilled electricians I considered more like family, followed close behind in their own vehicles. Mike, the youngest of the bunch but sharp as a tack, always blasting his country music a little too loud. Old Man Johnson, a seasoned veteran with calloused hands and a wealth of experience, silently observing everything with his knowing gaze. And then there was Maria, our efficiency expert, keeping us on schedule and making sure every detail was executed flawlessly. We were a well-oiled machine, each cog fitting perfectly into the larger mechanism of the project. As we unloaded our tools and equipment, the usual pre-work banter filled the air. Mike was complaining about his wife's cooking. Johnson was dispensing wisdom about the proper way to strip a wire, and Maria was already reviewing the blueprints. I took a moment to survey the site, mentally mapping out the day's tasks. The concrete foundation was already poured, the skeletal frame of the building rising toward the sky. Other trades were arriving too: plumbers, carpenters, HVAC technicians, all converging to bring the architect's vision to life. It was a symphony of organized chaos, each trade playing its part in the grand construction. This was the kind of work I loved, the tangible progress, the satisfaction of creating something from nothing. I built my company from the ground up with hard work, honesty, and the unwavering commitment to doing things right. I'd faced my share of challenges, biases, and prejudices along the way, but I never let them deter me from my goals. This was my livelihood, my legacy, and I wasn't about to let anyone jeopardize it. The previous days on the site had been smooth, the atmosphere cooperative. The general contractor, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah, ran a tight ship, ensuring everyone stayed on schedule and adhered to the safety protocols. We had established a good working relationship with her, and I appreciated her professionalism and respect. This project was important for my company's future, a chance to prove our capabilities and secure more lucrative contracts. We had invested heavily in new equipment and training, ready to tackle any challenge the job might present, which made it all the stranger, then, when the white Range Rover screeched to a halt near the temporary construction office trailer, disrupting the morning rhythm and injecting an unexpected dose of tension into the air. I had a feeling, a gut feeling deep down, that this day wasn't going to be as smooth as the others. The tension was palpable, radiating from the vehicle like heat from an engine. The Range Rover, gleaming white against the dusty backdrop of the construction site, was a stark contrast to the utilitarian trucks and vans that lined the perimeter. As the driver's side door swung open, the cacophony of yapping from within the vehicle intensified. Two miniature dogs, resembling fluffy white rats, strained against their leashes, their high-pitched barks echoing across the site. From the vehicle emerged a woman who immediately commanded attention, not through charisma or competence, but through an undeniable aura of entitlement. Her hair, styled in a rigid, helmet-like fashion, appeared impervious to wind or gravity. Her sunglasses, perched precariously on her nose, concealed her eyes, but I could sense their judgmental gaze sweeping across the scene. Her designer handbag, clutched tightly in her hand, was probably worth more than my entire tool collection. This was Diane, the woman who would soon be known to everyone on the site as Karen, the walking embodiment of privilege and unwarranted authority. As she approached, her heels clicked sharply on the uneven ground, each step a declaration of her self-importance. It was immediately obvious to me that she was completely out of place. She wore pristine white slacks and a silk blouse, attire completely unsuited to the rugged environment of a construction site. She looked like she had just stepped out of a high-end boutique, not prepared to manage a construction project. Her dogs continued their incessant barking, adding to the already building sense of unease. I exchanged glances with my crew, a silent communication passing between us. We had all encountered this type before, the kind who thought they knew everything, despite knowing nothing. I knew I had to tread carefully, avoid confrontation, and focus on getting the job done. She immediately set her sights on me, her eyes narrowing slightly as she approached. "ID now," she barked, her voice sharp and demanding. The words hung in the air, heavy with condescension. I paused, taken aback by her abrasive tone. I was clearly identifiable, wearing my company-branded shirt, safety vest, and hard hat. My truck, emblazoned with the Morris Electrical Solutions logo, was parked nearby. I had been on this site for days, working diligently alongside the other trades. Yet she treated me with suspicion, as if I was an intruder. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to remain calm and professional. "Good morning," I replied, my voice measured and polite. "I'm Jalen Morris, the electrical contractor for this project. I can assure you that my team and I are fully authorized to be here." She didn't seem to hear me, her eyes still narrowed, her gaze unwavering. "I need to see your identification," she repeated, her tone even more insistent. "And the IDs of everyone. With you." This was blatant harassment, an attempt to assert her authority through intimidation. I could feel my anger rising, but I tamped it down. I wasn't going to let her provoke me. I calmly reached into my pocket and produced my driver's license and electrical contractor's license, handing them to her with a steady hand. She scrutinized them, her expression unreadable. Then, she began to pepper me with questions, her voice laced with insinuation. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she asked, her eyes darting around the site. "This is a medical office complex. Are you lost?" The subtext was clear. She didn't believe I belonged there. It was a familiar sting, the subtle prejudice that I had encountered throughout my career. Her questions escalated, becoming increasingly pointed and offensive. "Are you supposed to be on this side of town?" she asked, emphasizing the word "this" with a thinly veiled disdain. "I thought the landscaping crew was working on the other side." The implication was clear. She assumed, based on my race, that I was a laborer, not a skilled professional. The microaggressions were piling up, each one chipping away at my patience. My crew watched silently, their faces etched with concern. I knew they were ready to defend me, but I signaled them to remain calm. I didn't want to create a scene, but I also wasn't going to allow her to disrespect me or my team. "With all due respect," I said, my voice carefully controlled, "I'm the electrical lead for this project. I've been hired by the property owner to oversee all the electrical work. If you have any concerns, you can take them up with Sarah, the project manager." She laughed, a loud, dismissive sound that echoed across the construction site. It was a calculated move, designed to humiliate me in front of my crew. "I don't care what your little company says you do," she sneered, her eyes narrowing. "I've seen plenty of you people fake jobs to sneak onto properties." The words hit me like a physical blow. The blatant racism, the condescending tone, the outright accusation of dishonesty. It was all too much. My blood ran cold, and the anger that I had been suppressing threatened to erupt. It wasn't just an insult to me. It was an insult to my entire team, to my business, to everything I had worked so hard to achieve. I couldn't let it stand. "Excuse me?" I replied, keeping my tone level but firm. "I think you need to watch what you're saying right now." I took a step forward, prepared to tell her exactly what I thought of her accusations, but she didn't even give me a chance to respond. She turned her attention to Mike, who was closest to her, and attempted to grab his clipboard. "You're all being reported for trespassing and fraud," she announced, her voice shrill and accusatory. "I'm calling the police right now." She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, her fingers dialing with frantic energy. "There's an unauthorized group of men posing as contractors on the property," she told the operator, her voice dripping with false urgency. "They're refusing to comply with my instructions, and I suspect they may be dangerous." It was a complete fabrication, a desperate attempt to justify her prejudice and exert control. Her actions were escalating rapidly, and I knew I had to intervene before things spiraled completely out of control. Mike, sensing the gravity of the situation, pulled out his own phone and started recording the interaction. It was a smart move, a way to document her behavior and protect ourselves against any false accusations. I knew that this situation had the potential to become very ugly, very quickly. I needed to think fast, remain calm, and protect my livelihood from this woman. As Karen continued her animated conversation with the 911 operator, Mike's phone steadily recorded her escalating tirade. It was surreal, watching her spin a web of lies, painting us as criminals when we were simply trying to do our jobs. The beam. Other tradespeople on the site had stopped working, drawn in by the commotion. They watched in stunned silence, their faces reflecting a mixture of disbelief and outrage. The air was thick with tension, the atmosphere charged with animosity. Within minutes, 2 police cruisers arrived, their sirens cutting through the morning air. The officers, a man and a woman, emerged from their vehicles and approached the scene with cautious professionalism. Karen, seeing her backup had arrived, immediately launched into a theatrical performance, waving her arms wildly and pointing at us as if we were dangerous criminals. "They're refusing to comply with my instructions," she shrieked, her voice bordering on hysteria. "They're a safety hazard, they're trespassing, they need to be arrested." The officers, clearly accustomed to dealing with such situations, remained calm and composed. They approached me and my crew, their expressions neutral. "Can you tell us what's going on here?" the male officer asked, his voice calm and authoritative. I stepped forward, taking a deep breath to regain my composure. "Officer," I said, my voice steady and respectful, "my name is Jalen Morris, and I'm the electrical contractor for this project. My crew and I are fully authorized to be here. This woman is making false accusations and harassing us." I explained the situation, recounting Karen's initial demands, her condescending questions, and her outright accusations of fraud. I emphasized that we had been working on the site for days without incident, and that we had a valid contract with the property owner. The officer listened attentively, his eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, he turned to Karen and asked for her credentials. "Ma'am," he said, his voice polite but firm, "can you provide us with your identification and any documentation that authorizes you to be on this property?" That's when things took an unexpected turn. Karen, who had been so assertive and confident just moments before, suddenly faltered. She stammered, avoided eye contact, and fumbled through her purse, producing nothing but a crumpled tissue and a lipstick. I don't have my badge with me," she mumbled, her voice losing its earlier bravado. "But I'm the site manager. I was hired by a third-party vendor." The officer raised an eyebrow, his expression skeptical. "Can you provide us with the name of the vendor and a contact number?" Karen's face flushed crimson. She began to backtrack, claiming that she had been mistaken, that she had only been trying to ensure site safety. But it was too late. The officer had already seen through her charade. He turned to his partner and spoke in a low voice, relaying the information he had gathered. The female officer nodded and made a call on her radio, requesting verification from the property owner. The silence that followed was deafening. Karen shifted awkwardly, her eyes darting around the site, searching for an escape route. Her dogs, sensing her unease, whined and pawed at her legs. My crew watched with a mixture of anticipation and grim satisfaction, knowing that the truth was about to be revealed. It took only a few minutes for the verification to come through. The female officer, her expression unreadable, approached Karen and spoke in a low voice. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I could see the color drain from Karen's face. She looked like she was about to faint. As the woman spoke, I retrieved my contract from my van. The male officer then turned to me and asked for my documentation. I handed him the contract, the one signed by the property owner, listing Morris Electrical Solutions as the primary electrical contractor. Stamped, dated, and notarized, it was undeniable proof of our legitimacy. The officer examined it carefully, then radioed the information to his dispatcher. A few moments later, he turned to Karen, his expression hardening. "Ma'am," he said, his voice firm and authoritative, "it appears that you are not authorized to be on this property. Furthermore, we have received reports of harassment and false accusations. You will need to leave the premises immediately." Karen's facade crumbled completely. She began to protest, her voice rising in pitch. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked. "I have every right to be here. I'm the site manager." But her words rang hollow, devoid of any credibility. The real project manager, Sarah, had emerged from the construction trailer, her face a mask of fury. She strode towards us, her eyes fixed on Karen. "Diane," she said, her voice icy. "We need to talk. Now." She turned to the officers. "I apologize for the disruption," she said. "This woman is a former employee who was terminated last week. She has been repeatedly contacting our staff and attempting to interfere with our operations. We have already filed a restraining order against her." Sarah turned back to Karen, her face contorted with anger. "You were fired a week ago!" she yelled, her voice carrying across the site. "I have no idea why you are here, but you're making things difficult for everyone. You were already warned." Sarah turned to the police. "She was fired a week ago, but she has been emailing everyone acting like she's still on payroll, acting and harassing crew leads. She even billed the company for management time on jobs she wasn't assigned to." The realization dawned on me. Karen wasn't just a busybody. She was a disgruntled former employee, clinging to a position she no longer held. Her actions weren't just offensive, they were potentially illegal. As this unfolded, my guy Mike showed her racist remarks on his video to Sarah. Sarah looked extremely upset and said, "I am so sorry you had to experience this. That is completely unacceptable." Sarah, visibly enraged, didn't hold back, her voice booming across the site. "You've been blacklisted, Diane. Every job site tied to our network will know your name, and you won't be welcome on any of them. You've harassed my crew, wasted police time, and spread lies. You had a good job, a good opportunity, and you threw it all away because of your arrogance. And well, I won't say it, but everyone here knows what you are." Karen spluttered, trying to regain some semblance of control. "I'll sue," she screamed. "I'll sue this company. I'll sue these men. I'll sue everyone. You haven't heard the last of this." The police officers, however, had heard enough. They calmly escorted Karen back to her Range Rover, informing her that she could face charges for trespassing and harassment. As she walked away, defeated and humiliated, she turned her anger on her dogs, yelling at them as if they were somehow responsible for her predicament. It was a pathetic sight, a display of utter desperation. And then, as if the universe was delivering a final poetic stroke of justice, it happened. As Karen backed her Range Rover out of the parking space, there was a loud hissing sound. She had run over a nail, puncturing one of her front tires. The tire deflated instantly, leaving her stranded. She drove off with sparks flying, the car limping down the road. She didn't stop because she was too far away to hear all the men on the site started laughing. My crew and I started to pack up our equipment. Sarah came over to me and apologized for the situation, then told me to send her a copy of Mike's video, the whole situation. She said that because of the video, they will go after her, and this will ensure that she never messes with anyone again. She said that also she is extremely grateful for my team's patience. The project manager turned to me and gave a big smile and said, "To prove I'm sorry to take away from y'all's work time, I will be giving Morris Electrical Solutions a $5,000 bonus when the project is complete." My team and I smiled and thanked the PM. We continued to do our job. We are all grateful that it all ended so well. This experience was a reminder of the prejudices that still exist, but it was also a testament to the power of resilience, preparation, and documentation.